All right. We got John Stencel the fourth here on the last bolt. And we're going to learn a lot about what Frank Bacon does. And of course, we always like to start off with kind of your story. And I know we met a while ago, but
hmm
yeah, we're just going to have a conversation and kind of explore the business and also just any other things that you're doing. I know you're a real estate guy too, but also
Yep.
it's been a minute since we've caught up. So I'll really want to hear also about what you're doing in the future because I know you're a builder at heart.
Always trying to build.
So let's talk about your third generation business, right? Is that right? So let's go back.
Third generation.
Let's go. Actually, let's start off first with you. Like, so tell me a little bit about where you growing up, where's the business, and let's start off with your childhood and growing up, and go from there.
Sure. So I'm the oldest of four kids. I have three younger sisters. So grew up in the household with not a lot of guys around me, just me and my dad holding tight. Was always interested growing up in sports and engineering. My grandfather was an engineer, and then my other grandfather, who started Frank Bacon Machinery, ran a machinery dealer company. So always grew up around equipment with either side of the family, whether it's my grandpa retrofitting, rebuilding tractors to my other grandpa working on industrial equipment. So always interested with becoming a engineer. That's what I got my degree in, mechanical engineering. Played baseball in college. So my two loves of sports and engineering, and got to take those full fledged at Saginaw Valley State University,
Right.
D2 baseball. Um, I grew up in Bloomfield Hills, Michigan my whole life, been here the whole time, besides a quick stint up to Saginaw for school. But third generation family business started by my grandfather on my mom's side. So a little bit unique. The business was from my mom's side. My dad kind of married into the company when he was dating my mom. And then my grandfather passed away pretty young. And my dad was like 30 years old and got handed the business,
Mm.
2 years into it. So kind of had to figure out, okay, I have 2 years under my belt. Now I got to run a company with employees and really figure everything out from the ground zero.
What was his
So,
background? So walk
so
me through. I mean, yeah, like
yep.
what
So my
was he about?
dad, a University of Michigan graduate, more on the sales end of things. He started in engineering, didn't love the math, kind of went over to the sales side where he was really good at, and graduated with a business degree.
Got it.
And first big job was working for Xerox.
Really,
So selling
they're the
printers and
they're the best.
copiers in the day. I mean, that was the job to
That was
have.
the job, and if you could
Yep.
get a job there, you definitely learn how to sell.
Yes. So he started off in that competitive world of selling
Oh,
copiers and printers, and it was cutthroat, and he was good at it. And then he goes over to the machinery business. He's like, "What? This is this is easy. I can sell stuff people actually want and need."
right,
like
right.
not to say people don't need printers, but it was just a much less competitive field. And obviously, once he took the sales training, very corporate sales structure, and moved that to a small business, he saw success pretty quick
Hmm.
implementing those same things that Xerox taught him.
So where was the business? Where was the business? Where was
Yeah.
the business at with your grandfather, and how did he start it? I know it's you call it the other side, but like, how did he even get into it? You know?
Yeah. Good question. I mean, he just graduated high school graduation, never went to college. He was in the Navy, Golden
Mm,
Glove boxer in the Navy, self taught. He read every single book you could imagine, really focused on biographies. So his just learned from books, biographies, and all the great Winston Churchill, you know, um, Benjamin Franklin. He would just read and learned and realized through his books. He got a random book from the library that talked about industrial equipment and the up and coming industrial revolution, after World War II. And he's like, oh, I think this is something I should look into. Read a bunch of books on it. And that's really where he got the idea. The Detroit area was starting to boom after the war, and saw a big need as the automotive was building up and industrial around the Detroit area was booming. He's like, I got to get into this. Taught himself everything, read every book about what does a mill do? What does a lathe do? What does a press do? And really, started selling equipment on the side. Um, got a little warehouse. I mean, probably 1,000 square feet in Detroit, and got his first employee, which was a immigrant from Trinidad Tobago. He was 18 years old, didn't never turned a wrench in his life, and my grandpa brought him in and was like, "Hey, do you want to work for me?" So that was his first employee. So
Wow,
literally flipping random equipment around the Detroit area, all manufacturing type.
man. So your dad kind of falls into the family business. And where was it then? Like, what size was it coming from? Like, all right, we got 1,000 square feet, first employee, and I'm sure it kind of grew slowly there. But like, how long did he have the business before? I know he passed a little bit earlier than he should have, but
Hmm.
where was it at? And did it, I guess what I'm asking too is, was the business in a place where, you know, it was stable, or did your dad come in sort of like, we got to figure things out? So I'm just curious on how that, because it was an unexpected handoff, right?
Yes. Yeah. So, I mean, there was a lot of hoops he had to jump through. I mean, first, the business was successful. They probably had 6, 7 employees at the time. They're doing well. But then my grandpa's sick. He had cancer. So he is
Yeah.
going through that, all the struggles he had to deal with. And my dad, new to the business, just 2 years in, he understood the sales aspect. He could do that. But now you got to learn how to acquire the equipment, how to bring it in, how to fix the equipment, how to manage employees, how to deal with salaries, payroll, taxes. That was all new to him. And luckily, I mean, he got to bounce a lot of ideas off my grandpa while he was fighting through cancer, but was able to figure out enough to keep it going and keep it growing. And really, I mean, he took it from a 6, 7 person company up to a 15, 16 person company. And they continued to grow, got a bigger space, warehoused more equipment, brought in some more talent, and brought in an engineer, which was actually my uncle. Came out of TRW Automotive, they're designing seats and seat belts and stuff like that. So that really helped take us to the next level from just being a straight dealer to actually value add to the equipment where we can
Right.
actually remanufacture, rebuild, test, turnkey, set up machine exactly for what the customer wanted. And then brought in some other talent and some really good machine tool builders. And that was really the key. Not just be a dealer where we're just buying low, selling high, but actually adding value to the customer.
Yeah, and it's always about the people, and I think
Yep.
sometimes small business, the greater ones figure out that the talent gets you where you wanna go, but it's always hard to find great and especially in that business, like, good engineers and good technical
Oh,
folks
yeah.
who actually can add the value. Who's the customer, right? And perhaps was it just serving the auto market, or can you elaborate a little bit more on, yeah, who the customer is and was?
Sure. Yeah, so I mean, back at that time, we're a general machine tool dealer. So mostly metal fabrication and metal cutting equipment. So mills, lathes, presses, stamps, jig, grinders, stuff like that. So automotive was big in the area, but would also get customers outside of automotive. So any manufacturing, any metalworking, tier one, tier two, tier three suppliers to automotive, aerospace, defense, even some medical device manufacturers. Anything that had to be made, we weren't too generalized in terms of industry, but across all manufacturing disciplines.
Got it. Can you explain for your audience what a tier 1, tier 2, and tier 3 is? They
Sure.
probably don't know. Yeah.
Yeah. So you got your big automotive manufacturers like Ford, GM, Chrysler, Plymouth at the time. There's a bunch of them, Saturn. They are doing the majority of the engineering and final assembly, but they're not making all the parts. So they'll have what you would consider a tier one supplier, which would be a big vendor to them, which might do the stamping for the sheet metal or build the engine or make a major component specific to that car. And then you got tier two, which are making components for the tier ones, and then tier threes are making components for the tier two. So it's kind of a ladder
It's like a
effect. So
waterfall.
tier three, yep, tier three, then goes to tier two, then tier one, then goes to the major OEM who's doing that final assembly, which is taking all those components from the different tiers of vendors, putting them into a final assembly, which the car then rolls off the product line.
I Oh, no, go ahead.
And that's not only for automotive, but across many industries, defense, military, they all kind of do the same structure nowadays.
Right. And I isn't it you gotta kinda work your way up to get to the top of the food chain. Now, obviously in size and capacity and throughput, of course, but, like, you typically start on the bottom at a tier 3 or, you don't just wake up and wanna be you can't be a
Oh,
tier
yeah.
1. I mean, you don't have the quality probably like, I'm just curious if is that right, though?
That's correct. Yeah. I mean, it is. You gotta as you grow with capability and production volumes, you can get up to those higher tiers.
Mhm.
So, I mean, if you these production numbers could be millions and millions of parts. So you gotta have a bigger facility, bigger teams, bigger equipment, better quality standards. You're getting into ISO
Yeah.
standards in terms of being a builder and a distributor of the equipment and the machinery and making sure your processes and procedures are all checked and audited and qualified.
Exactly, that latter part is audited. So, for a lot of folks who don't know, ISO, and I think it's what, ISO 9001 is kind of the standard, and then
Correct, that's for manufacturing.
there's different ISO or certifications that allow you to sell to aerospace or defense. What are those? And are those as intense as or maybe more intense as, like, an audit or to have the appropriate processes and procedures? Like, I'm just curious.
Yeah, I mean, each ISO has its own intricacies, but it's basically a paper trail and a process, standard operating procedures that the business follows that can be traceable and audited on a usually it's either a yearly or a every other year basis. So our business specific, since we do test equipment now, that's our
Mhm.
new niche. We are accredited to ISO 17025, which is specific for calibration and test labs.
Right.
So we have to make sure all of our processes are followed, that all of our standards are certified and calibrated and traceable, that all our people are trained, that our equipment is good. Like we have to stand by that to put out a certified piece of equipment. ISO 9001, that's specific for people that manufacture parts. They have their own standards, and there's a bunch of different ISOs in every different field. Aerospace has NADCAP, which is a different certification. So every industry, medical has their own ISOs. So
Mhm.
all these industries follow very specific guidelines to get to that high quality level.
Right, makes sense, you need a standard. So, getting back and we'll get there soon. So, when do you start to come into the business? So, the business grows from 6 or 7 to 15, and your dad's slanging, um, he grows the business, you move into a bigger spot, and then when do you what about when is this, where you're at, like, the 15 or 16, and it's like, when are you coming into the business? I'm assuming you always knew you were gonna be, or maybe not,
Yeah.
coming into the
So,
family business?
so yeah, I always grew up around the business. So even, I mean, I have pictures of sitting on my grandpa's lap when I'm 2 in his office. So I always grew up around the business. During the summers, I would work there, sweep the back shop, keep the place clean. Um, during college, knew I wanted to be an engineer, got my engineering degree,
Right.
took some other jobs. I wanted to get some experience outside the industry because I wasn't 100% sure at the time that that's what I wanted to do.
What were those jobs?
I worked at a engineer at Tacom, which is they're a military supplier in the Warren area, and they're known for their tanks. So engineer designed tanks, and I was in their test lab. So we would put together vibration systems to check Humvees and tanks. We put them on these big 4-post simulators, and it was during the time of the Iraq War where they're getting a lot of explosive devices, and the standard Humvees weren't surviving them. So they had to put a
Wow.
lot more metal and protection so that these soldiers weren't getting killed from the explosive devices. So we would add a lot of metal to them. And it's like, okay, after you add all this weight and metal and guarding, how does that going to handle on a real world road or simulation? So we'd put it on this 4-post simulator and shake the vehicle to see how well it would. Hey, well, does the suspension break? Does the engine that doesn't fall out? Is the suspension, the transmission? How does that handle the real world vibrations? So that was my first big job in college.
How big was the company? I mean, people just don't know
Huge.
this stuff. They don't know what goes into, like there's across to get to the end product, there's so many folks involved, right? But, like, is this a big company?
Yeah, Take On is it's a huge um, government defense facility, really. And I mean, it's a mile by mile by mile by mile facility. It's
Wow.
huge, probably 3,500, 4,000 people work there. So
Oh,
it was
wow.
a big, big facility. And I was specifically in the test group, which had its own building. You were R&D and testing. But yeah,
Wow.
they have every design engineers. It was a big government facility.
Well, I can imagine the testing part probably you took later into the business,
Hmm.
but, like, seeing an operation at 30 that many people, thousands of employees, was that something or you're just in the R&D cooking, so maybe you didn't get to just, like, look around and say, "Man, this is" coming from a small business family, which is great,
Hmm.
but seeing a really professionally run, high-scaled business, it's a different world, right? So, curious if there's any of those, like, learnings you took while you were there. I know you said a couple jobs, but, after school, but what was there anything special that you took from there, seeing an operation like that?
Yeah, well, to be honest, I saw things I didn't want to do. Things
Like
moved a lot slower than I was used to or I liked. I
yeah,
like
yeah,
things to move quick. There was so many different chains of command and a lot of sitting around I saw. I wanted to do more. I wanted to learn more. Okay, I finished this. What's next? Oh, well, manager doesn't have anything else to do, or we're waiting on a project, we're waiting for higher ups to come up with our next routine of tests. So I saw that these bigger companies weren't necessarily as efficient or moved as quickly or as exciting as I was hoping. You always think big company, oh, I'm gonna do so much. Well, you're kind of a small little piece of that pie, and
right,
you have a very specific set of duties that if you finish those duties quick, you don't necessarily have anything else to do.
right,
So that I noticed that I'm like, this might not be for me long term. But then on the good side, I saw a lot of cool things like engineering software. They had huge budgets. You had the latest and greatest of everything from test equipment to software to modules to processes and procedures. That's where they really excel. But in terms of speed of implementation or switching something up, it's very slow.
right. It's kind of ironic, right? Which is what most companies get bloated with so many chains of command, so many people, and if you're someone who's ambitious and wants to make change, that's not
Hmm.
a great place to be. That said, to your point, you got the coolest toys and best software, so,
Yep.
and I'm sure, like, those thoughts of how can we take that cool software or the greatest technology to maybe bring to the small business too. I'm sure it was
Yes.
kind of the idea. So after that, you spend a little time there, and then did you do something else before joining?
Yep. I did 2 years there. So two different internships, summer internships at Take On. And then I worked for a small silicone injection molding company in Midland, Michigan. So I was a design engineer. We were designing, example, ketchup bottles, when you squeeze them, they have a nice little nozzle at the end that puts out a nice smooth stream of ketchup.
Yeah,
That's what LMS did, is design different dispensing mechanisms for the food and beverage industry.
that's cool.
Yeah, so it was like completely random, totally different industry, worked in their test lab and design department, and it's amazing how much testing even goes into something as simple as a ketchup bottle. I mean, you gotta know exactly the amount of force to squeeze the bottle to get that stream out. What happens if you squeeze it 200 times? Is it the same stream as the first time? I mean, it's all that. I kinda realized, wow, there's a lot more that goes into this stuff, even simple things.
And what size company was that?
That was like a 150 to 200 person company, so much smaller than I was used to, but still a
Not
decent sized
small.
company. Yeah.
Yeah, not
Yeah.
small
No.
still.
Yeah.
Gosh, it's amazing. And it's amazing as like, all right, well, I'm sure there's a horizontal, there's probably a lot. It's like we do one thing, right? We want to make the best, in this case, injection molded, perfect nozzle for ketchup, and I'm sure of other condiments or other
Yep.
things. I'm
All
I'm
that kind of stuff.
oversimplifying, but the point is like that's what we do,
Hmm.
right? You come to us, we have the expertise, we know the testing, we have the process, and it's going to be good. Very cool. How long were you there? And then what is
So I was there for the last 2 years of college. So I would go to school and work at the same time and play baseball. So it was a busy time, but learned a lot. Learned a lot.
and then what'd you do after when you graduated?
Graduated on a Friday and then started work full time at Frank Bacon that Monday. So went right to it.
Well, and maybe it's a Midwest thing too, and how I think we're the last. Well, we always say that, and that's probably why our parents and the grandparents they're always like, "Oh, the next generation doesn't work that hard." I feel like in y- just grinding. And maybe it's a Midwest thing.
Yeah.
I know everyone's like work ethic is important, but graduating on Friday and starting on Monday, getting right into it, man. So where do you get thrown into?
So, at that time, myself, my dad really didn't know where I'd be the best fit. So, what I did and what I focused on was really getting Frank Bacon machinery into the internet age. You
Okay.
know,
Tell
at
me more
that
about
time,
that.
eBay was starting to get really big. Okay, we at that time we didn't have an eBay store. We had a website, but it was a really old school website. We were one of the first dealers to actually have a website. So, I mean, it was an old school industry, and I'm out of college. I always used the internet and grew up with it and realized, okay, there's something here. We cannot be just a local company where we had to advertise using pamphlets and mailers to now getting our inventory on the internet and reach a much bigger audience,
Yeah, be
much
national.
bigger market.
Right.
So eBay was a huge thing. The first thing I did was start putting up all the machinery on eBay, all the accessories that would typically just sit in bins forever, spare parts, and really grew the first eBay store for a machinery dealer.
Right. Well, and that's the thing I think connecting some of the in the legacy industry, a lot of owners don't understand that like you're one person, like how can we leverage it's operational leverage. That's all about the distribution. It's like let's use
Mhm.
another channel. We got more stuff to sell and let's leverage the internet to do so. And I think that's just something that a lot of that generation kind of just got left behind. Like they didn't
Yeah.
understand that man, you can leverage a tool to sell more, right?
Yep.
You don't have to pick up the phone book every time and try to dial and sell. Very cool. And so where does that kinda all right, so you figure out better ways to, like, sell more equipment. Where does that kinda go to? It's like, "All right, son, you're good at this," and then where do you go to a different area in the business, or how does that kind of evolve?
Yep. So started kind of at the bottom and then realized, okay, I can do this. I can sell. I'm an engineer first. I learned self-taught sales. So started talking to more customers, getting into some of the bigger, higher end machinery. Now at this time, we were 90% selling mechanical testing equipment. We've transitioned from outside of the manufacturing equipment, machining equipment, and we went into electrical discharge machines, which was about half of our equipment, and then switched over to about 90% of our equipment now being testing. We saw a niche in testing. No other dealer in the world was doing it. So we went 100% into that, going forward.
Well, let's dive into that because like making these it sounds simple business decisions. Walk me through like why get out of the manufacturing, pivot to all right, let's kind of wean off this and like what was it that was it your dad, you like it sounds simple, but it's not because it's hard to
Mhm.
be like this is what we've been doing. We are good at this, but like is there I don't know if it was a eureka moment or you get a bigger customer that you want to service. Like how does that happen?
Yeah. So here's a good example. Electrical discharge machines, EDMs, was 50% of our business, which is a lot
Explain what those
for.
are because most people don't.
So basically, they use graphite to burn a shape in the metal. So where a traditional machining center will cut the metal using
Mhm.
a bit, they'll actually burn in the metal, and they're used for very hardened material where it would be hard to cut with. And you need a really good surface finish. So really big into aerospace, mold making. They use a lot of EDM machines. So that was a big portion of our business. My dad went to go buy a bunch of EDM machines, and he asked one of the shop foremans, "Hey, why are you guys selling all these machines? These are nice machines." And there's like 25 of them for sale. Why? Well, we got this new machine that can cut at a much higher spindle speed. It's a CNC machine. Now we instead of needing these 25 EDMs, this one machine can replace all of them.
Wow.
So he goes, "Oh shit." We have 150 EDMs on our floor. We have millions of dollars of this inventory. And he realized we got to get rid of this inventory quick because this market's changing and you got to be able to
Wow.
move with technology, right?
Right.
So got out of that as quick as you can. Now they're still used today, but where a shop might have had 20, 30 of them, now they might have one or two. So
Wow.
volumes are going way down. And we were already stumbled into some testing equipment, bought and sold a few Tinius Olson Tencel testers. We're successful in it and realized, no one's onto these. We're the only ones that are doing it, and saw a big void in the market for used quality secondhand testing equipment.
Well, and explain again, what are those? And is it still to the end market for the aerospace industry? Like, walk me through again. You don't just like, yeah, I'm gonna flip this. I mean, there's a little more thought to it because it typically has to do with the customer. But like, maybe it was a story because you got a trade in. What happened though? I mean, I can't imagine it was just a well, we can buy low, sell high. Like,
Yeah.
what was it?
So the first couple ones were, yeah, oh, we're buying out this facility, and they had a couple Tencel testers. Oh, what are those? Well, we didn't really know at the time. And then once you get them in, you kind of have to figure out, okay, what are these done? What are these used for? Why do people have them? And what's the market value? So first couple ones we stumbled upon, realized there are value to them. Let me go into what is a tensile tester. So a tension compression machine is used to either pull apart a piece of material or compress a piece of material until failure and tell you at what load it breaks at. Um, More modern ones do more than that, yield, tensile, elongation. These are all material properties of metals, but then they have smaller ones that for plastics and rubbers. And it's used to get the data for then the engineers to evaluate the material in its given use case.
Right.
So used throughout industry, whether it's a metal provider or a provider of plastic resin, or you're testing parts for a car, automotive, aerospace, medical devices, everything that is made, you got to test the material properties to make sure that product's going to last in the real world. So that is what a universal testing machine or tension and compression tester is. So we stumbled upon those, realized nobody else is doing this. Let's try to get into this market and be the big player in it. So it kind of happened. I mean, it sounds quick, but it was over 2 to 3 years of stumbling upon it,
Got
getting a couple more. Now we know what we were looking for. So if we saw one, we'd buy it. Kind of reversed engineered how to get them to work, how to calibrate them, how to then modernize them as the business grew. And we became better at our niche, where now we're offering, completely remanufactured systems with all new controls, software, etc.
Well, so leveling up the team, you're gonna need engineers. You can't reverse engineer a tensile tester without having
Hmm.
proper, like, engineering knowledge, right? I mean, this isn't just like it's a pretty sophisticated machine, I'd imagine, right?
Hmm.
So, at what point, okay, well, these are valuable, and this seems like a sustainable business, in a good market that's probably gonna grow. Where do you go get the engineers? I mean, you because you're pulling these things apart, right? You gotta start growing your engineering side. So, is that difficult? Right? Getting the talent that you needed? And when did that happen? What year is this?
Yeah. So this is, let's see, 2012. I'm 2 years into the business at that point. We're full steam ahead on our mechanical testing division and line. We're really transitioned almost out of EDM completely. And luckily, we had a really, really talented team of machine tool builders that they didn't care if it was a tension machine or a EDM or a mill. Like, they could pull it apart and figure it out.
Really?
So we got really lucky. We got really good guys that were just used to working with their hands. I mean, that's a dying breed. You try to find a machine tool builder today, and in the United States, it's almost unheard of. You can get engineers, but these are guys that are completely hands-on, can take something apart, look at it, and be like, okay, I know exactly how this works, and goes back together.
So just from the experience of being able to understand how machines work,
Yes.
they can figure it out, which is
Yep.
wild, kinda wild. 'Cause it's to me, it wouldn't be an apples to apples comparison, but you're sharp enough to figure out with working with your hands all the time, like, to take something apart that you don't really know. I mean, that's like yeah, I would imagine it'd be pretty hard, but I guess that's what happened.
Push buttons, you figure it out, you screw it up, you break it, you put it
Right.
back together again. You do that enough, the school of hard knocks. Um, we figured it out. But then, I'm an engineer, mechanical engineer. We had another mechanical engineer in house at the time, and we had two electrical engineers in house.
Mm.
So we really were understood both the mechanical side of things and the electrical side of things to really take that niche to another level.
Okay.
And we continued to add more engineers and, partner with a company in Massachusetts that did custom software for these material testing systems because we're not software engineers. And that's a totally outside of our expertise, but we knew what we needed and we knew what kind of software was required to then run these machines. So we partner with them, and that's when we saw another big step forward. Is now we don't have to just fix these machines; we can actually upgrade them and retrofit them to all new software and controls.
Yeah. Hey, I think we lost you on the video there. There you go. There you go. So now just wait for a sec.
There you go.
So let me just repeat what you just said. So essentially, you got electrical engineers, mechanical engineers, but the software component was kind of like the missing, like the third
Correct.
leg in the
Yeah.
stool, right? And so you partnered with, sorry, say that again.
We partnered with a company in Massachusetts. Well, actually, it wasn't a company at first. It was a grad student at MIT that
Okay.
his thesis was open source material testing software. That was his thesis in grad school,
Really?
getting his PhD. A brilliant guy, obviously,
Yeah.
engineer, software guy.
How'd you
And
find them?
he came to us
Wow.
because he knew, I mean, we were the only ones doing what we were doing at the time. We're the only ones that had, 200 tensile testers on our floor. We understood the mechanics, but we didn't know the software. And he understood the software, but not the mechanics. So it was kind of a crazy
True love.
partnership that couldn't have fell in our lap in a better way. But that's how it started. And he literally moved from Massachusetts, basically lived at our facility for a year or two,
You never
developing
told
the
me
first
that
one.
story. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, that's man, that's cool. Right?
Yeah.
Okay, so that's the missing piece that you needed to be like, all right, we're gonna
Yep.
build the, you know, most badass tensile testers there are because like no one's really fused those things together. Right? We've got
Correct.
great electrical engineers, we've got great mechanical engineers, but we need the software because that's the future.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. It's kind of what happened whenever, putting computers on CNC machines. I mean, at some point it's like, God,
Exactly.
manual can't like we need software because it's going to be more accurate, higher precision, better, yada yada yada. So very cool. So he just moves. And as one does, I don't even think personally I know anyone that has done a technical PhD degree, but you go to MIT, you do a PhD, you're obsessed with like problem solving and you're
Oh yeah.
passionate. So someone's just like, they're doing cool stuff. I got to go. Right.
Yep.
I love that though. So he comes and this is how many years in the business then? This is what, 4 years? You're what, 26, 27?
No, I'm 20, 23, 24.
Oh God,
Yep.
man, that's
So
awesome.
yeah, straight in, and all this change is happening. We're developing our new hydraulic power supply because again, the only people that could fix these machines was the OEMs, and
Mm,
they kind of kept people out of the secondary market. They didn't want anybody to get secondhand machines.
right.
So if you bought a secondhand machine and you wanted it, your software was dead or your controller wasn't working,
Yeah. Buy a new one.
buy a new one. Yep, sorry. So there was this big market and all these people that had all these good load frames, these good machines, but the software was bad or the controller that was bad, even pre-software. And they're like, still need to use this machine. I don't want to spend the 100 grand for a new one. But now Frank Bacon can offer a fully remanufactured system with the latest and greatest controls for half the price. So that was really fueling our growth.
Yeah. And is that warranted or is there any?
Yep. That's
Wow.
fully warranted. So we put a new 1 year parts and labor warranty on it. Only ones in the market doing it.
Okay.
Fully serviceable, fully supportable, fully certified. But basically the same warranty as a new machine.
And like what typical customer is buying one of these or more, right? Can you walk me through like,
Everybody.
because they gotta test the material.
Yeah, anyone from Caterpillar to Boeing to NASA, John Deere, Ford, GM, Chrysler, Northrop Grumman, Lockheed Martin, the big steel producers, Nucor, Fasteners, Fastenal, sold machines to Hot Pockets. I mean, you
Right.
name it, they make something.
Right.
Medical device companies, Hubble Power Systems. I mean, our customer base is across all manufacturing disciplines,
Right.
not any given niche.
So this is kind of like the eureka moment for you. You're 24, 25. And where if you are open, like roughly what are you doing in sales then? And where does it like take and this is where it kind of takes off. I mean, like you're like, we got something that no one has and we can charge it's like anything when you offer extreme value for a discount.
Yeah.
And yet you can also service and do everything else. It's like, why would it's a no-brainer offer. That's
Yep.
gotta where were you at employees? Was it still around 15, 16, something like that?
Yep. Yeah, we're
Okay,
still around 15, 16. We're in a 8,000 square foot building. We
okay.
warehoused another, that was where we were doing all the rebuilding. We warehoused another 30 to 40,000 square feet in Detroit, which housed most of our inventory.
Mhm.
And we were probably at that time, I want to say we were around 5 to 6 million in
Yeah,
sales.
right.
And we were really starting to get bottlenecked by our facility. Like at
Right.
that time, our lead times were getting too long for our sales because it was easy to sell at that value proposition, right? You can get basically a new machine at half the price, same warranty. So we had a good product, we had good margins, we had a good value proposition. Now it's like, okay, how can we keep up with demand? How can we manufacture these quicker and drop our lead times to increase our sales? Because that was
Mhm.
the main factor. If we couldn't get a machine out to a customer in 20 weeks, well, it's not always price, but it's also delivery, which is a major factor.
So you gotta go get more real estate, and you gotta get more equipment and people. What goes first?
Correct. So we couldn't fit any more people in there in our building. You know, we were busting at the seams. So the biggest thing we needed was a new building. So it took years. You know, we went through '08. You know, at that time, real estate was down. Buildings were coming on the market, but finding the right building and the right location was difficult. Um, This is 2018 when we finally bought our new building, which is 30,000 square feet. So we went from 8,000 of manufacturing space to 30,000 of manufacturing space. Still kept our old building and still warehoused down in Detroit. So we had 30,000, 8,000, then warehoused another 30 to
Yeah,
house our inventory.
68,000. Wow. Wow.
Correct.
Okay. And then how many people did you have to get then to staff up? Like, is it scale kinda 1 to 1 where like, how many engineers do you need or folks to, like, produce a tensile tester, and how many can you get out a year? Well, I guess
Yep.
they're
So,
all different, but go ahead.
yep. They're all different sizes and shapes, but you know, once we got the new building, it really opened up the door to bring in more talent. Not only did we have a bigger facility with more space for people, but it was a nicer facility, which was easier to attract talent when they don't come in and see it as a jigsaw just to walk around the shop, you know. So we got a really beautiful building. We hired a bunch of young engineers to help increase with production. And now we got the floor space to really work efficiently. You know, you're not double handling machines. You're not picking up a machine with a forklift just to move it out of the way to then work on another machine. Now you can keep a machine in its spot until it's done. So there's just efficiencies that you really gain with a larger facility and better space to work and better laid out. We set up the space exactly for our processes.
And so you said young talent. Are you recruiting these, kinda younger undergrad with not a lot of experience or like, we'll train and get you to be the best expert at building these things? Or like, you know, do you have like a training program? I mean, I can't again, if you're saying that the best folks, even better than engineers, were these machine builders and you can't find those folks, all right, well, can
Hmm.
get younger talent, hopefully find some hungry, wanna learn folks, but like, I mean, how long does it take to, like, get them up to speed?
Yeah, there's no real school for what we do. I mean, you could be the best engineer, but no one comes out of school understanding tensile testing equipment. You know, it's a very specific niche. Um, so we had the most luck in internships. So what we did was really reach out to schools in the area and asked if they had any interns that were looking for summer jobs or wanted to work during school. So we ended up hiring, you know, 3 or 4 engineers just through an internship program, which has been key. So they get to come in, they get to learn, see what we do. You know, is this something that they like? Are they someone we like? You know, is it
Right.
a good fit? It's got to work on both ends of the equation to get a good hire. And that's where we've seen the most success in hiring.
Talk to me about all right, we can build these things and it's great product. What about sales? Like, are you still doing sales, and have you built that side out to I mean, you can serve any end market. It's not that you're selling a business, but it's an acquirer's dream when you can sell to any end market and you have a great product and service. So it's like, yeah, where is there a specific focus right now? And, are you what does the sales team look like today?
And so we got 4 full-time salesmen, that are really hammering the phones and talking to incoming leads. Most of it is incoming through our website and word of mouth. That our website brings in a ton of different customers and traction. We've been obviously doing it a long time, so we're known in our niche as a quality supplier of used and now new equipment. So we had to grow out the sales team, but first, before we could grow out the sales team, we had to make sure our production could keep up. So what was happening before is our sales were always exceeding, production out the back. So once we got the back ramping, now we could focus on more marketing and get more incoming leads and then get enough salesmen to handle and fulfill those needs. So you can't just grow one. Because if I
Right.
grew too fast in sales, then production would be swamped again. We're going to go right back to that same issue is, oh, customers are complaining about the delivery times or quality goes down. You want to make sure you grow steady and organically, and you can never have a bottleneck, whether it's production, sales, or maybe you have sales but no marketing, and your salesmen aren't getting any leads.
Right.
So you have to attack each one at a timely manner. You can't grow one too fast or one too slow.
Do sales folks though, I don't know, they're probably talking to certain procurement or like certain I don't know who are they talking to? These like engineers who are buying this stuff, and like do they have to be technical? Like is it more of a consultative sale? Like again, like are these rookies that are coming right out of school? Like who are these people? Because it's such a niche business. It's like, I don't know how to sell this, but curious on
Yes.
that.
Yeah, those are great questions. I mean, yes, it is a very technical sales process. So most of the time we are talking to engineers, but they don't even know exactly what they need. They go, we need to pull this part. What machine do I need to pull this part? Or what should I be asking? What questions should I be asking to get myself the right machine? So it is a very technical process where we're asking them, engineering specific questions to make sure we're putting them to the right machine for their application. So that is something I really had to train the salesmen that we have, is they didn't come from that background.
Mhm.
They're general business guys out of school. We had a couple of technical sales guys here. They're good college athletes playing lacrosse, and they're just good with people, but didn't know the technical end of it. So that's something we had to. It takes years to really get them trained up on all the small nuances with selling a testing machine and making sure they're getting the right machine, the right size, the right force capacity, the right accessories to pull exactly and get the results they want to need. So it does take some time.
So where are we at today then with the business? You were at 5 or 6 mil then. Where are we roughly at here today? And like how do we get 2 or 3 times bigger if that's what you want, right? I'm
Yeah.
curious, what's the future look like?
So, our goal is always to grow, 10 to 15% a year. And we've been doing that steadily, really since I've entered the business, and we've got this great team together. And, the goal is to get up in the northern 20s in terms of the revenue and keep our same quality or control and our margins, right? You don't want to just get a lot of revenue and not be able to
Make
get the
money?
profit out of it and make money. So that's the key thing, is growing organically and steadily. So we've grown a lot. We've over doubled from that, initial area when I was hired. And things are looking good, and it's still a strong market. R&D, all the new technologies coming out,
Yeah.
from EV cars to the new aerospace technology, drones, space, the whole satellite manufacturing right now that's going on. That's been huge growth for us. Got into other product lines such as vibration equipment that we offer both new and remanufactured. That's really been another product line that's growing, and we've gotten a lot of notoriety for. So it's always, adding production capability, increasing making our products better, and then also looking at other niches in that testing world to get us up to that next level. So the goal is to keep growing. I want to keep growing the team. Everybody wants to work more. We got a lot of hungry young engineers and young guys that want to grow and build families and buy homes and cars. And to be able to give them the salary increases they want, you got to grow as a company. If you stay
Yeah.
stagnant, it's hard to keep your talent.
How many folks were you at today then?
We're at 31.
31. Got it.
Hmm.
I gotta also imagine as you were talking about different just energy and all that entire ecosystem, kind of bringing it back to America. Got some massive energy companies, battery companies in Texas that are keep raising tons of money. I
Hmm.
got to imagine they're going to be just in and around that sphere are going to be
Yeah.
testing a ton of stuff, right? So I can't imagine the more production that we have here, the more we'd want to be. Well, why wouldn't I want to buy any sort of testing machines in house so I can go faster and build faster, right? So there's only good tailwinds for the business.
Yes.
What where do you see I mean, we're still young enough. One, how much are you working? Are you do you got I know you're in real estate. I don't know if you're still in it, but, like,
Hmm.
how much time carved out are you still grinding here? And is this gonna continue to stay in the family, this business?
Yeah, the long-term plan is to definitely keep it in the family. Like I said, I'm young, not 40 yet, 39. And I
That
still
makes me feel
see
bad. I
I
just been
feel there's still a lot of growth, in this market, in my industry, and I still see a lot of ways we can improve and grow as a company. Um, like you said, we have a great tailwind behind us. R&D is only getting bigger and better with all these new emerging technologies. Just quoting companies that are doing fusion energy. The next generation nuclear power plants are coming. They got to test everything from the graphite to their tension rods holding the reactors together, the concrete, the rebar. You know, all that needs to be tested, and all goes right in hand with our testing equipment. So good tailwinds. The more we innovate and build in this country,
Yeah.
the better it's going to help everybody. I mean, especially our business and all those other like tier one, tier two, tier three suppliers. Not every company can do everything in house. So it's just going to be an expanding growth throughout the market the more we innovate and engineer and build in this country. And I don't see that slowing down right now.
Well, no, and I see this all I mean, again, being in the industrial space, seeing just across the supply chain, like everybody doing one thing, but especially in the manufacturing side. I mean, one, offline, I got to send you some customers that I know would be interested. But two, we didn't even talk about this. Are you testing for companies that don't buy a machine because they just aren't big enough yet, right? Maybe it's a company that's doing only 10 or 20 million and it just doesn't make sense yet to buy $100,000 machine. And it's like, but I need you to do it because we'd like to keep the R&D inside. But do you offer that service?
We do. So that
Okay.
was a new business that I started, kind of a spin-off. It's called FB Mechanical Testing, and it's an ISO 17025 accredited test lab. So the idea was behind that was, not you're like you said, not every customer has the budget or the know-how or the facilities to do the testing in-house. So while they're a startup and while they're growing, let's do the testing for them, on our certified equipment. Now we can show off our equipment, show off our capabilities, and then as they grow as a company, then can transition them to a machine in-house. So it
Mhm.
really goes hand in hand. It's been a great way to get some of these customers that we would typically have to push away, or they're just not ready for a tensile tester in-house or a vibration machine or any type of test equipment. Now we can do the testing for them and kind of keep them along that pipeline until they're ready to buy.
And so how did the logistics work though? Is that why I think we talked a little while ago why it might make sense to have testing centers across because just logistically it might not make sense to test. And I don't know how big these the average site, but you're not probably sending it via FedEx, right? They're that easy, right? I mean, walk me through the logistics. It's just like,
Yep.
if I can't send it over to Bloomfield or Detroit, it's like, yeah, well, I can't even use your service, but I also don't have the money to buy a whole one,
Yep. So,
a new one.
it depends on the test. Like a lot of the tensile testing stuff is small coupon dog. They're called dog bone samples, so they can send
Oh,
those to
okay.
us pretty easy in a UPS or FedEx,
Oh,
and we can test them. Send them the results next day. So the tensile testing definitely can be a bigger market because it's easy to UPS those to us. But like for vibration, like say they're testing a big compressor housing, you don't want to ship that because not only when you're shipping, it's undergoing vibrations. It could arrive completely damaged.
Right,
Everybody knows how UPS and FedEx handle
right.
stuff. They're chucking boxes around the back of the van. So for that type, for the bigger products, environmental testing, vibration testing, it would make more sense to work with a local lab. So as we grow, it's like, okay, how can we work or partner with labs across the country, fill up those labs with our quality equipment, and really offer nationwide testing centers would be kind of the goal.
That's the goal. And, I haven't been to that to the website, but for the testing of those, what do you call them? Dog what are they called?
They're dog bone, or
Dog bone.
they're ASTM dog bone specimens. So they're so everybody's testing the same thing.
Mhm.
You can create a simple dog bone where you're cutting it out on a CNC or a water jet machine to make it a smaller, easier to pull sample.
Got it. Can I go onto the site and sort of like the experience of like pretty easy, almost like a checkout where it's like you it's almost like it's a product-led growth where I, the customer, "Hey, I wanna test this thing," and it's almost like taking an order, right? Like, I
Hmm.
just imagine that in my mind. I don't know if that's as easy as it would be cool as an experience for a customer, but it's like, "Hey, I got a bunch of these things to test," and you're just taking orders like you would at a fast food place. I'm totally oversimplifying, but
Yeah.
if it is they're small enough, I mean, it seems like, "Hey, let me send you 5, 10 samples or whatever," and then you just ring, "Okay, we'll test it," and then if you said 24-hour, 48-hour turnaround, you can get the results?
Yeah. Hmm.
Yeah, that's very
Yeah.
cool.
I like that. I mean, the idea is to make the ordering system as smooth as that. It's not there yet. Most of it's a quick email form and a couple emails back and forth. But the idea would be like you're checking out an Amazon or a Shopify page,
Because what
hey, this
info
is
do you
what,
need?
yeah, specimen size. I mean, we could definitely put together a kind of a funnel per se. It's like answer this question, this question, this question, leads you to the end result. And then we know everything we need to know. One click, submit the thing, it prints out a label, they ship us the specimens, done. That's how automated I'd like to get it.
Oh, dude, we should talk. I don't think that's that hard, actually.
Yeah, no, I agree. I agree.
Very cool. Okay. So have we been looking for on the vibration testing side? Like, have you been looking in and around? I know we talked a little while ago, but that might be an idea. Like, have you made any headway on finding any interesting companies that you can partner with or purchase and any headway there?
Uh, yes and no. There's some people that are interested in selling but aren't quite ready yet. And then there's also some other companies that we want to make sure they're in the right location. So really, we got Midwest handled pretty good, but the southern states, Florida, Alabama, Texas area,
Right.
Houston, Dallas, Fort Worth, booming there with industrial manufacturing, and then West Coast, California, Nevada, those areas we don't. So those are the areas we're kind of looking for to really expand, because we see those as growth opportunities and really big markets for manufacturing and testing.
Well, especially
Aerospace is getting big.
Especially for Texas, can you not does it not make sense if you can't buy and you already wanna put your machines 'cause you wanna maintain the quality, why not open a shop there? Like, in Austin?
Good.
I mean, and just because it's like I mean, this is my business, convincing some folks who yeah, timing is a lot of things, but also, like, I mean, we're seeing a economic and engineering boom in Texas. I mean, it's
Hmm.
going as well as California, where, you also don't wanna get passed up, like, maybe you open a real small shop up and it's like we put a couple, but like we start building the relationship with the customer. Have you guys thought about that? I don't know what the capex would be on that or how much cash it would need to require to start up, but
Yeah, I mean, the finding the right real estate, finding the right location. The bigger thing would be getting the right team that can handle that location and that we could train up, and they know how to run each type of equipment. So they know how to run a vibration, they know how to run a temperature humidity chamber, they know how to run a tensile tester, they know how to run a fatigue system. So it takes a very special person, because you don't necessarily want one person for each product type. You need a good generalist, a good
you need
guy
an
that you can train.
entrepreneur kinda I mean,
Yes.
basically that's like, "Hey, I think there's an opportunity for massive growth," and I mean, just Texas alone. If you got
Oh, yeah.
I
Texas
mean,
is huge.
and even like there's so many smart people coming out of Austin in that ecosystem where, oh god, I'm drawing blank on what Michael Dell's son's company. You know, Michael Dell,
Mhm.
his son's got, what is it called? Base energy? Base power?
Okay.
God, his name's Zach Dell. I want to say he's raised like, I think he's might raised 1 billion so far. And
Jeez.
they build
Okay.
super sharp. I'll send it to you after, but
Yeah.
it's his son. And you know, one could say, okay, well, my dad is Michael Dell. This dude is he worked at Thrive Capital. Do you know what that is?
No, I've not heard of them, no.
So Thrive Capital is one of the biggest VCs. It's over in New York, and God, my brain's moving slow today. But one of the interesting VCs who also does a lot of private equity, and they also do innovation within. Where if they see a thesis where they're like, "Hey, we got to make better batteries in America," they will incubate that idea and fund it. And if it
Oh,
takes off,
nice.
they will they have, I want to say their latest fund is, you know, a couple billion. Like they have the capital to really put
Jeez.
a couple 100 million. I want to say, and I God, I'm feeling, I'm not feeling very smart right now, but Zachary Dell's company, I want to say is like, I think it's called Base. They've raised a ton of money. They're in Austin.
Okay.
And these guys are moving at an insane pace, but there's a bunch of these upstarts because, you know, Joe Lonsdale, do you know who he
No.
is? He
No.
was one of the co-founders of Palantir. He's done
Okay.
was the you can call him a co-founder for, what's the big defense company, startup? Anduril,
Yeah.
big investor. He has a VC company called 8VC. They do something similar similar model where there's a bunch of these Austin guys, because that's also where Michael Dell lives. And they incubate. They're like, hey, I got a thesis around, we're really bad at battery. We're really bad at solar. We're going to do it in America. And we are going to put a little seed capital, 20, 50 million, which is not small for a seed. We're going to put a really
Mhm.
sharp folks. And then if it starts to take off, they just put gas on it. Right. Yeah. So he was one of the co-founders of Palantir, is Joe Lonsdale, Stanford guy. All these geniuses are down in Austin, but
Brilliant. Yeah, they are.
the talent there is pretty impressive. So that's why I was just like, and these are young guys. These are all around our age where, well, I think Zach is like 27 or 28, and
Jeez. Yeah.
his co-founder's a little bit older. It's 3 or 4 years older. He was the guy who was like the head engineer at Anduril at like in like 28.
Mm.
And then they started this power company. He came over and those two started, but like there are a bunch of these 25 to like 45-year-old, dude, we
Yes.
got to bring manufacturing back here. And just like how they run a company is, we build it on top of a software stack, and we're completely
Mhm.
reimagining what the old way to do something is. And economically, let's build it here, but we can still make a ton of money. And so
Yep.
they've already deployed these batteries at homes where they're saving energy costs instead of going through your typical ComEd. Like I want to say in Austin, like four to one. So you're saving like 80% on your
Jeez.
energy
Yeah, that's
costs.
great.
Again, much smarter than me, but like it's cool to see some of these upstarts saying like, why are we having everything built in China or wherever? And again, not to be too political, it's like it's a risk. Let's build
It
stuff
is.
here. And like you said, you're getting calls for people trying to make the new like nuclear or fission or fusion, and it's like there's capital being put out because I think the siren was kind of, it was a big siren saying, "Hey guys, we got some risk out there. Let's start bringing it back home and like make sure that like we don't have too much risk and that we build stuff here. We do
Yes.
silicon here. We do the chips here. If it costs more money, who cares? We're consumers. We'll pay for it. But let's not have a supply chain risk. Let's not have risk where they have more leverage." So I will send you that. I'm pretty yeah, it's pretty fascinating though. But it's cool to see like, man, we've got some young guns that really want to do
Yep.
cool stuff in unsexy businesses. So
Yes.
anyways, all right. So as we kind of wrap up here, though, you told me a little bit where you want to go. What's the big thing? Forget about revenue. Like, where do you want this to go? Is this going to be the national company? And of course, I want to be helpful in any way I can. But like, is that what you would say, man? This built this company where I really want it to be. I want to be national. I want to be everywhere in the U.S. It's like, is that how big you want to go?
Well, I mean, we're national in terms of our customer base, but our
Right, but
location base is Midwest, Detroit
yeah,
area. But I definitely see growth in those test lab markets. I
right.
definitely see growth in acquiring other companies in our niche and product lines that we don't currently service and support and aren't experts in. So there's definitely growth there. Where else? I mean, if any like a young entrepreneur that came to me and said, "Hey, I would love to partner with you. I'm in Austin. I know how to run all these tests. Let's start. I would love to start a test lab with you, and you guys become the equipment provider, and I'll run the lab." Like that is the kind of partnerships we're looking for. Any smart, young, hardworking entrepreneur that wants to partner with us anywhere across the country that has the expertise and knowledge to know how to run this equipment. I mean, that is a great way to grow. You know,
Mhm, mhm.
basically be their partner and they don't have to put any money out of pocket for staff for filling up their warehouse with test equipment. We'll come in there, we'll set it up, we'll turnkey it for them, and then they can manage it and run it. And we can put together some processes, procedures, and tips on how to do that properly. But we need a good, you know, entrepreneur like mindset to partner with.
You know what I'm gonna do? Well, one, part of this is I just don't think people understand, while it's niche, like, how important this is, but also how good of a business it is.
Hmm.
Like you said, like, every acquirer wants a business that serves almost every single market. It's got great macro tailwinds. I would say this model almost is great for what we call a searcher, which is basically you're betting on a jockey, super sharp entrepreneur, where it's like, I have the capital. I'll give you incentive to run this business. Go get some customers. We've got the great product and build a business. And I mean, I'm hoping we can get this out to enough folks where I will send you a couple articles, but Austin, I think, is the place. And just Texas in general is people are doing some really cool stuff there. And
I
there's
agree.
so many
Ton of talent.
ambitious, again, we're from the Midwest and while you and I are very ambitious, there is a reason why New York and San Francisco and certain ecosystems, like when you get a lot of just crazy, yeah, smart people, but like ambition and
Yes.
just that sort of that vibe is so strong, you do great things.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes, like, even just being from Chicago and you from, Detroit, but suburbs, just I think Midwest sometimes we need to dream bigger and we need more people who want to do and build great things. What you're doing though is honestly servicing what I hope America becomes greater at, which is like, let's build cool stuff here, physical
Hell
things,
yeah.
you
Yeah.
know? So I think we can kind of wrap it up here. And I really appreciate you always taking the time. And I know it's been a minute since we personally caught up, but as always, I really appreciate you joining on and taking the time today.
Oh, my pleasure, Steve. It's always good catching up with you. I could talk, testing, manufacturing, energy, how we can make this country, better and the next generation. There's a lot of bright kids coming up the pipeline that have ambition and want to do cool things and maybe don't know where to start. But that's the key is like, okay, let's get these people together. Let's put all the great minds together and how can we take this to the next level? You know, other countries like China, they got a lot more people.
Right.
How do we keep up? We got to put all the brightest minds together and on a common goal.
I don't know who it was. I think it's like Charlie Munger. I'm gonna butcher but it's basically, incentives, show me the incentive, I'll show you the behavior.
Hmm.
If you can sell the idea that this business is great, you can make a ton of money. This is what people don't understand about small business.
Yeah.
They're the ones who live in Bloomfield Hills or the North Shore of Chicago, like, because, hey, you know what? I can build a really highly profitable business that feels like a family, but I don't have to work 100 hours for the man on Wall Street and I can still make more money. What you
Yep.
have here is a great sellable thing that I think if people realize what they can do, that's what I'm trying to interview and have conversations with more small business owners is like, just like we've been sold a different story. Like, do something great, build something on your own, have some autonomy, and mm, let's build, let's go. Right.
Yeah. So
All
true.
right.
I can't
All
agree
right.
more, man.
All right. Well, hey, thanks again. Peace for now, and great catching up.
Awesome, Steve. Nice talking
All
with you.
right.
Talk to you
Peace.
soon.